Iran's civil aviation chief denies that a missile downed a Ukrainian airliner, which crashed, killing all 176 on board, and dismissing claims of a catastrophic mistake by Tehran's air defenses.
Gale force winds in Australia merged two enormous fires into a mega blaze across land, almost 4 times the area of New York City on Friday.
Taiwan's presidential rivals will hold mass rallies Friday in a final push to convince voters ahead of a closely watched election that looks set to infuriate China and send ripples far beyond its borders. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Iran, alluding to doubtful scenarios, challenged international suggestions that the Ukrainian airliner that crashed outside Tehran this week was mistakenly downed by an Iranian missile. The Iranian government, in a statement, urged Canada to share its information after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said multiple intelligence sources indicate that Iran shot down the Boeing airliner after it took off from Tehran on Wednesday, killing all 176 on board, including 63 Canadians. Now, Iran's foreign ministry also invited the U.S. plane maker Boeing to participate in its inquiry into the crash. Canada's theory was swiftly backed up by other Western leaders, including British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who said mounting evidence supported an Iranian missile strike, which may well have been unintentional. U.S. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, indicated that Washington officials believe the Kiev-bound Boeing 737 was struck by one or more Iranian missiles before it ditched and exploded outside Tehran.
We have intelligence from multiple sources, including our allies and our own intelligence. The evidence indicates that the plane was shot down by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. This may well have been unintentional. This new information reinforces the need for a thorough investigation into this matter. Canada is working with its allies to ensure that a thorough and credible investigation is conducted to determine the causes of this fatal crash. As I said yesterday, Canadians have questions and they deserve answers.
I have my suspicions. It was very, I don't want to say that because other people have those suspicions also. It's a tragic thing when I see that. It's a tragic thing. But somebody could have made a mistake on the other side. Could have made a mistake. It was flying. It was flying in not our system. No, it has nothing to do with us. It was flying in a pretty rough neighborhood, and somebody could have made a mistake. Some people say it was mechanical. I personally don't think that's even a question. Personally, so we'll see what happens. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to get. That's up to them. At some point, they'll release the black box.
Flight PS752 went down just minutes after takeoff from Tehran Airport in the dark early Wednesday after Tehran launched ballistic missiles at American military targets in Iraq in retaliation for the January 3 U.S. drone strike in Baghdad that killed a top Iranian general. Tehran said it was prepared to allow experts from the countries who lost people in the crash to help with the inquiry. The ill-fated plane was carrying 82 Iranians, 11 Ukrainians, 10 Swedes, 4 Afghans, 3 Germans, and 3 Britons, as well as the 63 Canadians.
Iran Civil Aviation Chief Ali Abedzadeh said Friday he was certain a Ukrainian airliner which crashed outside Tehran this week was not hit by a missile.
ولی اون چیزی که برای ما محرز هستش و با اطمینان میتونیم بگیم که این هواپیما موشکی با اون اصابت نکرده. همونطور که دیشب اشاره کردم به اون هواپیما نزدیک بیش از 1.5 دقیقه آتش روش بوده و در حال پرواز بوده و جای هواپیما نشون میده که خلبان تصمیم به برگشت داشته.
Ukraine called for United Nations support for a broad investigation and sent 45 crash investigators to Tehran to take part in the inquiry led by Iranian authorities. Investigators are pursuing several possibilities, including engine failure, a missile strike, or an act of terror. Ali Abedzadeh, head of Iran's Civil Aviation Organization and Deputy Transport Minister, said Iran and Ukraine were downloading information from the aircraft's black boxes retrieved from the crash site.
Meanwhile, U.S. lawmakers concerned about rushing to war with Iran adopted a measure aimed at reining in President Trump's ability to take military action against Iran or the Islamic Republic. The resolution was introduced by Democrats after President Trump's order to kill an Iranian commander and retaliatory missile strikes by Tehran dramatically escalated tensions and raised fears of a devastating war between the two foes. Citing the War Powers Resolution of 1973, which forbids a president from taking the country to war without congressional approval, the measure directs the president to terminate the use of U.S. armed forces to engage in hostilities in or against Iran or any part of its government or military. But the text also provides for key exceptions, allowing use of force to defend against or prevent an imminent attack against Americans.
So here we are to protect American lives and values. We are passing today a War Powers Resolution to limit the president's military actions. The administration must de-escalate and must prevent further violence. America and the world pray for peace. That's what we must do. And so what happened, in the view of many of us, is not promoting peace, but an escalation.
Instead of working with the administration to make America stronger, Democrats are working against us to make us weaker. Make no mistake, today's War Powers Resolution cannot become law. By definition, it will never be sent to the president, and it will never limit his constitutional authority to defend the American people. It is a concurrent resolution.
Democrats have introduced a similar war power resolution in the Senate, where it faces a steep climb as Republicans hold a 53-47 majority. Two Senate Republicans, Mike Lee and Rand Paul, announced support for the Senate version, suggesting the vote as early as next week could be razor thin. President Trump, a Republican, had tweeted that he hoped all House Republicans will vote against crazy Nancy Pelosi's War Powers Resolution. He also made a new claim about the intelligence behind the air raid, telling reporters at the White House earlier the Iranians were looking to blow up our embassy in Iraq. Here's more.
Soleimani was actively planning new attacks, and he was looking very seriously at our embassies, and not just the embassy in Baghdad, but we stopped him, and we stopped him quickly, and we stopped him cold. And yet now I see the radical left Democrats have expressed outrage over the termination of this horrible terrorist. And you know, instead, they should be outraged by Soleimani's savage crimes and the fact that his countless victims were denied justice for so long.
The War Powers resolution gathered momentum after a congressional briefing on Wednesday by administration officials seeking to justify the attack. Following the briefing by the Secretary of State, Defense Secretary, and CIA Director, two Republican senators broke ranks. Mike Lee of Utah and Rand Paul of Kentucky said they might back a similar resolution in the Senate seeking to limit the president's war powers. And the pair emerged from the top-secret briefing saying administration officials provided no acceptable rationale for killing Soleimani or specific evidence of imminent threats against Americans, and took the insulting step of discouraging questions about military policy. Let's listen in.
What I found so distressing about that briefing was that one of the messages we received from the briefers was, do not debate, do not discuss the issue of the appropriateness of further military intervention against Iran. And that if you do, you'll be emboldening Iran. It is not acceptable for officials within the executive branch of government, I don't care whether they're with the CIA, with the Department of Defense, or otherwise, to come in and tell us that we can't debate and discuss the appropriateness of military intervention against Iran. It's un-American, it's unconstitutional, and it's wrong.
When volunteer Sarah Price found a baby kangaroo frightened but miraculously alive in the pouch of its dying mother surrounded by the embers of Australia's bushfires, it seemed fitting to name him Chance. The furry pair had survived flames and have ripped through much of southeastern Australia, but the mother's organs later collapsed from acute stress, making her one among the more than 1 billion animals estimated to have died in the crisis so far. Chance is slowly recovering, getting regular food and water, and hiding out in a bag in a darkened room, a rare success story amid a disaster that has shocked even volunteers accustomed to Australia's frequent bushfires and prolonged droughts.
The 2013 bushfires were pretty horrific, but this by far is the worst we've ever seen and the worst outcomes we've had as well, I think. A lot of those habitats have been destroyed. We think a lot has perished in those fires. We don't think that a great deal has survived, and the reason I say that is we're not seeing the amount of animals coming to care or need rescue that we would normally anticipate that we would get. So just in our branch alone at the moment, I think we probably only have 8 or 9 kangaroos in care, maybe 2 or 3 possums, a few bats, so certainly not what we would expect from such a disaster. We'd expect a lot more. Sadly, Mum didn't make it. Joey was unhurt and uninjured, which is fantastic. A little boy that we've named Chance because he definitely deserves that. And he's currently in care with me at the moment, so he's had his vet checks and he's good. He's just not quite ready to go back, but when he is, there is a mob there waiting for him. So the rest of them will take care of him when we get him back to that space, which is amazing because that means we don't have to try and relocate him to somewhere he's not familiar with, so that will be brilliant for us.
Australia's extinction rate for mammals is already the highest in the world, but there are growing fears this year's bushfires could cause localized extinctions. 1/3 of Kangaroo Island, a wildlife haven off the coast of South Australia state, has been raised, and there are fears some species unique to the area might have been wiped out. At least half of Australia's only infection-free koala population on Kangaroo Island, a key insurance population for the species' future, is feared dead with more badly hurt. The Kangaroo Island Dunart, already one of 10 priority threatened mammal species targeted in the national government's threatened species strategy, could face extinction. University of Sydney professor Chris Dickman said his estimate of more than 1 billion animals killed was highly conservative.
Meanwhile, gale force winds in Australia merged two enormous fires into a mega blaze across land almost 4 times the area of New York City on Friday. Temperatures soared above 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit in parts of New South Wales and neighboring Victoria, where attention was focused on the two fires that linked to form yet another monster blaze. A state of disaster was extended 48 hours ahead of Friday's forecast of scorching temperatures, and evacuation orders were issued for areas around the New South Wales-Victoria border. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian said there were more than 130 fires burning in the state, with just over 50 not yet under control. On Kangaroo Island off South Australia, the largest town was cut off as firefighters battled dangerous infernos, forcing some residents to flee to the local jetty. The catastrophic bushfires have killed at least 26 people, destroyed more than 2,000 homes, and scorched some 8 million hectares, an area the size of Ireland. Meanwhile, NASA said smoke from Australia's bushfires has billowed into the lower stratosphere. It reached 17.7 kilometers above sea level. And NASA satellites also showed smoke has traveled more than 6,500 kilometers away from Australia, and some of it reaching Chile. Meanwhile, social media stars and sporting champions are splashing for the cash for Australian bushfire relief efforts and urging fans to do the same. Australian Marvel actor Chris Hemsworth said he would donate $1 million Australian dollars. Singers Kylie and Danny Minogue pledged 500,000 Australian dollars to the country's rural firefighters, a donation match by Nicole Kidman and her husband Keith Urban. Compatriots, including Russell Crowe, who used his Golden Globe win to speak about the tragedy, and Rebel Wilson have pledged donations, with singer Dami I Am also donating.
Hey there, guys. As you're well aware, the bushfires in Australia.
Taiwan's presidential rivals will hold mass rallies on Friday in a final push to convince voters ahead of a closely watched election that looks set to infuriate China and send ripples far beyond its borders. Some 19 million people are eligible to vote on Saturday to choose between two leaders with very different visions for Taiwan's future. In particular, how close the self-ruled island should tack to its giant neighbor. Beijing views Taiwan as part of its territory and has vowed to one day retake the island by force if necessary. But China is also Taiwan's largest trade partner. President Tsai Ing-wen, who is seeking a second term, has pitched herself as a defender of Taiwan's liberal values against the increasingly authoritarian shadow cast by Beijing under President Xi Jinping.
过去3年多来，蔡英文的政府在护主权、拼经济、顾生活，面面俱到，用尽全力。当然，但政府的施政总是有要改进的空间，但是改革必须往前走。
Her main competitor, Han Kuo-yu, 62, favors much warmer ties with China, saying it would boost the island's fortunes, and accuses the current administration of needlessly antagonizing Beijing.
我们能不担心吗？中华民国已经没有退路了，我们台湾人民没有退路。 我们的自由民主没有退路。
Both candidates are planning final mass rallies on Friday night as they try to mop up swing voters for both the presidency and the unicameral parliament. Beijing has made no secret of its desire to see Tsai ousted. Her Democratic Progressive Party leans towards independence, and Tsai rejects Beijing's view that Taiwan is part of one China.
To other news now, a score of striking lawyers blocked the entrances to the Lille High Court and prevented hearings from taking place to protest against a pension overhaul as some 300 people attend a General Assembly in crowded courtroom. Take a look.
Les avocats qui vont être le plus impactés par la réforme des retraites, c'est les avocats qui ont le chiffre d'affaires le plus faible. Donc ça veut dire que c'est ces avocats-là qui sont tous menacés de disparition. Et les avocats qui ont le chiffre d'affaires le plus faible, c'est ceux qui font du judiciaire, c'est-à-dire qui sont à côté de monsieur tout le monde pour les JAF, pour le contentieux des étrangers, pour le contentieux du surendettement, en tout cas à côté de ces situations précaires qui ne seront plus assistées, puisqu'on est vraiment aussi dans une volonté générale de privatisation de la justice.
France currently has a defined benefit system in which people are guaranteed monthly payouts upon retirement based on their contributions. For salaried employees who represent roughly 2/3 of the working population, pensions are calculated from the average of their 25 best years of earnings. Officially, people can retire at 62. But previous reforms have increased the number of quarters required for a full pension, meaning most people end up working beyond that age. In the public sector, however, pensions are calculated more favorably by taking into account only the last 6 months of earnings, and civil servants are often allowed to retire much earlier. Trained drivers, for example, can stop working at 52, and police officers, military personnel, energy sector workers, and others also benefit from special regimes allowing early retirement. Pharmacists, lawyers, physiotherapists, dockers, and even Paris Opera workers also have separate systems offering specific benefits, resulting in 42 different regimes. Overall, it is one of the most generous systems in the world, with pensions representing on average 75% of workers' pre-retirement earnings compared to an OECD average of 58%. It's also one of the most expensive, with public spending on pensions representing 14% of GDP. Only Greece and Italy spend a higher proportion in Europe. President Macron's reform would create a single system based on points that would be accrued based on salary, so that, quote, for each euro contributed, everyone gets the same pension rights.
Violent clashes unfolded in the street of Paris on Thursday as tensions escalated between protesters and riot police during anti-pension reform protests. An estimated 800,000 took to the streets to demonstrate on top of a widespread transportation strike over proposed pension reforms, with some of the protesters getting in physical altercations with riot police. In at least 2 occasions, riot police targeted members of the press. The nationwide strike, which started in early December, is one of the biggest to hit the country in years and has been affecting railroad and air transportation. On December 11, French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe announced a 2-year extension of the working period necessary to earn a full pension, triggering the anger of workers and trade unions. The reforms attempt to overhaul France's pension system into a universal system that will see payouts calculated from whole careers rather than the current last 5 years of activity. The pension age will also be increased from 62 to 64.
And police used tear gas against demonstrators who took to the streets of Sao Paulo in Brazil to protest the increase in public transport fares. Take a look. And as you can see here, it shows people running amid tear gas and 2 demonstrators getting arrested by the police. The protest was reportedly organized by the Free Fare movement in reaction to public transport fares increasing from 4 reals to 4 reals and 30 cents, or $1.06, to 4 reals and 40 cents since January 1st.
Let's head on to Madrid, Spain, where Julie Ann Ala will tell us all about the relaunching of the Iglesia ni Cristos Kabayan Ko Kapatid Ko in Madrid. Julie?
The members of the Church of Christ in Madrid, Spain, have carried out the relaunching of My Brethren through evangelical mission in Colegio International Grade. After the propagation of the gospel, they have carried out the in concert through several performances as they commemorate as well the 40th anniversary of the local congregation of Madrid.
For this activity, the members of the Church of Christ have been very prepared, and with the leadership of the ministers of the Church of Christ in Spain, the relaunching of My Countrymen, My Brethren was held through the study of the words of God, which are the basis of the faith of the members of the Church of Christ. Afterwards, as they commemorate as well the 40th anniversary of the local congregation of Madrid, a musical presentation was made with several musical performances that have been watched by the visitors who have able to attend to this great event. There have been different musical numbers, songs in choir, band, soloists, and even a pantomime performance. The participants of the in-concerts have carried out several practices in order to perfect all the performances. From the youngest to adults have joined this activity that will help them to be more united and more active in their services to God.
Estamos muy felices de participar en esta actividad y nos hemos esforzado mucho para dar lo mejor.
Hola po, masasabi ko po sa aktibidad po na ito ay napakaganda po dahil ito po yung first time ko po na mag-perform din po dito sa Espanya po. Dahil po sa Pilipinas, lagi din po kasali sa mga aktibidad, pero dito po sa Espanya, ito po yung first time ko pong sumali. So bali para pong remembrance po sa akin ito. Mensahe ko po para po sa inyo kapatid na Eduardo P. Manalo, sana po makita po ulit kayo at makadaupang palad po at lagi po kayong kasama po sa aming pong mga panalangin.
Napakasaya po na naging resulta po ng aktibidad ngayong gabi dahil sa kumpleto po siya, may sayaw, may kanta, may grupo at mayroong mga nag-perform po na choral. At napakasaya po ang naging feedback po ng mga kapatid. Una, nagpapasalamat kami sa ating Panginoon Diyos at pangalawa sa ating pamamahala na may mga ganitong aktibidad sa loob ng iglesia na lalong kasisigla at na ako'y sumasampalataya na ito lalong magiging maalab para sa mga kapatid na lalong magpakasigla at makapagpatuloy sa mga paglilingkod. At handa po kami makipagkaisa sa panawagan ng pamamahala na tumugon sa lahat ng mga kilusan at proyektong inilulunsad po nila.
There were many guests who attended in this great activity and have been able to know about the Church of Christ and the working for Madrid, Julia and I am one with
Thank you, Julie. Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN channel 725, same day as the Philippines.
Net25 is now available on OSN, the largest entertainment network in the Middle East and North Africa.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows live
And on demand, anytime, anywhere
on any mobile device on OSN Play.
Welcome back. China said that Vice Premier Liu He will travel to Washington next week to sign the Phase 1 deal with the United States that has lowered trade tensions between the world's two biggest economies. President Trump said Thursday that talks with China on the next phase of a trade deal would start right away, but that he'd like to wait until after the election to sign it.
Well, Phase 1 is a big number. It's a big percentage of the deal. Some would say half, some would say a little less or a little more than half, but it's a tremendous percentage. It's pretty much all for the farmers, also bankers. We also have regulations for a lot of things are covered that people are going to be very surprised to see. But it's a big chunk of it, and we'll start right away negotiating Phase 2. It'll take a little time. I think I might want to wait to finish it till after the election, because
Mr. Liu He, China's top negotiator in the trade conflict, will be in the U.S. Capitol from Monday to Wednesday to sign the deal, according to the Commerce Ministry. President Trump announced last week that the two countries would sign the mini agreement on January 15, but Beijing had yet to confirm the trip. U.S. and Chinese officials have said the agreement includes protections for intellectual property, food and farm goods, financial services and foreign exchange, and a provision for dispute resolution. President Trump also canceled plans to impose tariffs on $160 billion in Chinese merchandise in mid-December, including hot consumer items such as mobile phones, but punishing tariffs remain on about $250 billion worth of goods, including machinery and many electronic items. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer has said China committed to a minimum of $200 billion in increased purchases over the next 2 years from U.S. manufacturers, farmers, energy producers, and service providers.
Britain's parliament finally approved Brexit on Thursday, allowing it to become the first country to leave the European Union later this month, ending years of arguments that toppled two governments and splintered society.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 231.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 231. So the ayes have it. The ayes.
All eyes on another major challenge, the negotiation of a new relationship between Britain and the remaining 27 EU nations, which form the world's largest single market. The Brexit deal covers separation issues such as EU citizens' rights and Britain's financial settlement, and sets out an 11-month transition period in which to agree a wider partnership. Brussels warns the current deadline of December 31 this year is extremely tight and has given London the option to ask for more time. But Prime Minister Johnson insists there will be no extension of the transition period, saying that Britain must be free of EU rules as soon as possible.
231.
And without an extension of the transition period beyond 2020, expect to agree on every single aspect of our new partnership. We will have to prioritize.
I will approach this negotiation for this next phase in the same respect, the same objectivity, the same calm, and the same patience. But at the same time, nobody should adopt the determination of the Commission and my determination to continue to defend the interests of the EU 27 citizens and businesses, and to defend the integrity of the single market, which is, let me recall this point, much more than a free trade zone. However, we have a huge amount of work ahead of us if we are to secure an ambitious new partnership between the EU and the UK. And the time frame is hugely challenging. Once again, as I've already said, a new clock is ticking.
Meanwhile, people reacted in the streets of London after Boris Johnson's Brexit deal has finally been approved in Parliament, allowing Britain to become the first country to leave the European Union at the end of the month. Take a look.
Glad it's over now, or it's looking like it's going to be over. So it's been a long time waiting. A long time coming, and it's about time it's happened. Not that I'm happy that it's actually happening, but it's been an indecision for too long.
The way it's been sort of formulated and played out is pretty bad, and it's quite embarrassing, to be honest. But it is what it is, and you know, like I say, I think we just got to somehow just try and make it work. And I think it's going to be quite bumpy for a few years, but you know, maybe it will settle down and we get used to this new dynamic, and maybe it's not going to be so bad.
I actually think it's better than the one that nearly went through with Theresa May, because that was neither one thing nor the other. So I think it's easier for us to make our own way if we can make more of our own decisions going forward.
Fully autonomous cars are on a slow path to mass deployment, but a range of other vehicle technology is speeding ahead, including cybersecurity, which some manufacturers at CES insist is a top priority. Guard Knox Chief Executive Moshe Schliessel gave an example of a hacker remotely taking control of a fuel tanker truck, sending it to crash into a building.
My car has been hacked remotely. I was in the middle of the racetrack, and someone just took control of my car, which I could never anticipated. Let's take an example of a large truck that carries fuel. And that truck is going near cities or in different places, and the hacker is just penetrating to this truck and just taking control and throw it to the ditch, or taking control and driving it into a certain building. It's, I don't know, it's 9/11 but on wheels. Okay. We would think of it as a dome that protects the entire communication that's coming in and out from the vehicle and inside the vehicle itself. So the idea is to enable connectivity, to enable innovation, to enable the progress of this industry, and on the same time do that in a proper way.
As cars evolved into rolling mobile computers, the potential for disastrous cyber attacks has become a new road hazard. Israeli cybersecurity firm Guard Knox demonstrated the threat in a Formula One driving simulation at the Consumer Electronics Show this week in Las Vegas. New car models are packed with computer chips, sensors, and mobile technology that hackers could exploit to sabotage systems or commandeer controls. Opportunities for attacks are being revved up by the trend of self-driving electric cars communicating in real time with the cloud, smart city infrastructures, and one another. Israeli startup Upstream logged more than 150 cybersecurity incidents involving automobiles last year, twice as many as in 2018. The majority of those hacks involved remotely car door locks, but an increasing number targeted software applications or connections to the cloud. Last year in Chicago, dozens of luxury cars were stolen by hacking Daimler's Car2Go app.
Meanwhile, Hyundai announced it would mass-produce flying cars for Uber's aerial rideshare network set to deploy in 2023. The South Korean manufacturer said it would produce the 4-passenger electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles at automotive scale. Take a look.
It sleeps, it purrs, it even hisses at you. The robotic cat Mars Cat from Chinese company Elephant Robotics aims to become the bionic future of pets. The clumsy movements of the electronic feline make people swoon at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Watch this.
But my reason why I built this is so one day we can make this robotic cat to be more close to the real cat. But it may take a few years, but this cat is the beginning of the cat robot road. So that is the first generation. So some people, they cannot pet a real cat and they are allergic to real cat, or their department are not allowed to pet a real cat. So they can have this and they can pet it when they come home. And so each robotic cat will be different. So some cat will be active and some cat will be very lazy. So the
I think it's really cute. I've seen a lot of like pet robots around CES over the years, but I think that one is like particularly playful and expressive with the eyes, so I really like it.
While Mars Cat provides that kind of functionality out of the box, it's also customizable and programmable by the user. Inside, it's powered by a Raspberry Pi and it ships with Mars Cat SDK, which is an open software development library that allows you to fully control and program all of the robot's functions. This makes it an interesting gadget for STEM education and research too. It's touch responsive too, so it'll respond to head scratches or back strokes. It can also recognize and interact with objects, cat, toys, for example, people nearby, and even play with real cats. Only if and on whether your cat wants to play with a robotic version of itself.
And staying at the CES, green technologies are among the products being showcased there. The French-based company BEFC is introducing a button cell battery made of paper, while American brand Targus shows off a computer bag made from recycled plastic bottles. Take a look.
Cette pile est composée de papier, de sucre, d'enzymes, et avec ça on crée ce qu'on appelle une biocatalyse. On va en fait transformer du sucre d'un côté en acide et on va prendre de l'oxygène de l'air et on va créer un circuit. Et c'est comme ça qu'on arrive à créer de l'énergie très naturelle avec une catalyse complètement biologique.
The product starts as plastic bottles that are completely recyclable. We take the plastic bottles and shred them into pellets, as we can see here. From the pellets, yarn is made, and the yarn then gets taken into fabric. The fabric is the final step of the process, but then it gets made into the EcoSmart bag by Targus.
More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN Channel 725, same day as the Philippines.
In Good Shape, your weekly health show on DW that covers many aspects of healthcare. We look at what's new in medical treatment, nutrition, fitness, and beauty. We discuss these topics in depth with specialists.
Here's Ben Bernaldez for Eagle News Sports.
The third Winter Youth Olympic Games got underway with a sparkling opening ceremony at the Vaudois Arena on January 9 that was full of surprises, as 8,000 spectators enjoyed 7 stories emphasizing the Olympic spirit and the theme of home, all performed in a spectacular style by local young people. From the beginning of the opening ceremony, as fog gave way to a winter world of traditional chalet, spectators were welcomed home to the Olympic capital and taken on a poetic journey through the different phases of an athlete's growth. The Olympic spirit was at the heart of the choreography and was personified by a number of spirits dressed in white, helping the athletes on their 7-stage journey to excellence. The participants in the traditional athletes parade, consisting of the 79 flags of the 79 National Olympic Committees competing at the Lausanne 2020, were treated to a wall of noise as they entered the stadium, with the biggest cheer reserved for the final flag bearer, Switzerland's Thibaut Desain. At the different points of the night, screens also panned over to St. Moritz, where the ceremony was being streamed live and where the 225 athletes who will be staying there took part in their own parade. The cold run was led by ice dancer Gian Sender, the youngest member of the 112-strong Swiss delegation here at the Youth Olympic Games, in a fitting illustration of the organizing committee's commitment to youth. The flame then became a sparkle and took the audience on an immersive tour of the 8 competition sites of the Lausanne 2020 before returning as fireworks to light up the chalet in the final winter scene. In tennis, Novak Djokovic dropped his first set at the ATP Cup Friday in a titanic struggle, with Canada's Denis Shapovalov surviving a scare before rallying to guide Serbia into a semifinal against Russia. The world number 2 was made to work hard in a hot and humid Sydney by the 14th-ranked young gun before prevailing 4-6, 6-1, 7-6. His impressive teammate Dusan Lajovic buoyed a huge contingent of Serbia fans at Ken Roswell Arena, earlier crushed world number 21 Felix Auger-Aliassime 6-4, 6-2. The win set up a semifinal against Russia, whose 2 single players, world number 5 Daniil Medvedev and 17th-ranked Karen Khachanov, are unbeaten this season. The other last 4 clash will see the Nick Kyrgios-led Australia play either Belgium of Rafael Nadal's Davis Cup winning Spain, who are on court later Friday. Djokovic faced Shapovalov 4 times last year and won each match comfortably. Meanwhile, here are the results of the game today in the NBA. And these are the stories for EN Sports. I'm Ben Bernaldez and I'm 1 with 25.
And finally, let's now travel to the South Pacific and join American Samoa correspondent Arian Torres as she explores Larson's Cove, a small and secluded beach that has also been gaining popularity among the locals. Take a look.
Waitangi is located on the southern tip of Tutuila Island, only 12 miles or 19 kilometers from the capital city of Pango Pango. The coastline is made up of rugged cliffs and molten lava rocks, with only a few patches of sand. One of Waitangi's major attractions is Pongamaa Crater, which is listed as a National Marine Sanctuary. Another is the legendary place called Turtle and Shark, located along the coastline. However, there's only one location that until recently has been one of American Samoa's best-kept secrets. The location is Larson's Cove. But be warned, this small and secluded beach can be difficult to find. You will have to park at Turtle and Shark and then hike another 30 to 45 minutes, going down a small hill and through a plantation. After crossing the plantation, you will find the stairs leading down to the cove. Open year-round and free to the public, Larson's Cove has some of the best sand on the island. It is soft and white, perfect for relaxing or simply enjoying a picnic. The ocean water here is calm and shallow, ideal for small children. Larson's Cove is just one example of island life that longtime resident Heidi describes.
So if you're planning to come over here, be ready for the island life. You know, there's lots of beaches. If you're fond of water sports, we have it here. If you're fond of snorkeling or just swimming or spending time at the beach, this is a good place. It's actually like a small island paradise. But that's something for you to know, so you know what to expect here.
Reporting from Pango Pango in American Samoa, I am Arian Torres, always 1 with 25.
Thank you, Arian. Arian Torres reporting from American Samoa.
Yeah, thank you, Arian. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also, check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles, and
we're 1 with 25.